Right. Um, and of course, today is also going to be punctuated by a set of workshops, which are really for us a key part of this forum. And I really am hoping that most of you will take the opportunity to engage with us in those workshops, which are designed to find action oriented solutions to some of the Caribbean's DPI challenge. Just waiting on my crew to come on screen. Um, while we wait, one of the things I want to make a plug for. So the workshops, we have two workshops today. They are concurrent workshops, so you have to decide which one you want to attend. One is on, what is it, Matthew? Wallets, verifiable credentials and wallets, and one is on capacity building and education, looking at education and skills sector. The second one is the one that Yui, myself, and Prof. Mansing are coordinating. So I'm going to put a plug in for the second one. I know credentials and wallets are important and interesting, but so is education and capacity building, right? Um, okay, just a very few brief reflections on yesterday. Those of you who came to this session trying to figure out what DPI is, you absolutely know now what DPI is. I think that there was a lot of information about the elements of DPI, its conceptual underpinnings. Got great stuff from Argentina. Sorry, the keynote. From Dan and from Matthew on those conceptual underpinnings. Sorry, Dan, um, of DPI. We learned about DPG, digital public goods, as the building blocks of DPI. And we also learned about the role, and I was quite fascinated actually, Alok, with the articulation of the private sector's role in India as sort of architects and catalysts of driving that phenomenal evolution. And towards the end, we understood a little bit about the safeguards to ensure that those that are most vulnerable are protected. So we know everything now about DPI and what it is. We also got a feel for some of the Caribbean DPI experiences. So you had the country spotlights from Jamaica, from Trinidad and Tobago, from the Dominican Republic. And Matthew gave us a little bit of a landscape view of the Caribbean in terms of what are DPI initiatives, what are DPI pretenders, and so that was also interesting. So we have a feel for where the Caribbean is. And so that was yesterday. Pretty extended session, but I think a very good sort of foundational content for where we're going today. So today we extend that. Oh, and I wanted to put this up because, and you'll forgive me, Inshan, because we didn't ask your permission to post on Instagram. But one of the very recurrent themes yesterday was the importance of collaboration, regional cooperation. And this says it perhaps as well as any. When we collaborate, even small nations can pioneer great change. So those were Dr. Mia John's words, and that's currently on MSBM's Instagram site. Um, so let's look at today. We'll now take a couple of country spotlights from the wider uh, global context. So Latin America, Africa, we have spotlights from Brazil and Rwanda. And again, one of the goals of this forum is to learn as much as we can from others. We have no interest in reinventing the wheel. So the lessons that are applicable to us, we absolutely want to have those. And then today sort of moves towards what we call, okay, how do we go about this? What are the implementation strategies for DPI? This morning, we'll hear about DPI as a service, and an approach to accelerating DPI implementations. Again, a very important uh, concept, idea, approach for the Caribbean. I think it was my colleague Kim who said yesterday, let's just get stuff done, right, Kim? So that will be important to get a feel for what that is. And I think there are some initiatives in Trinidad and Tobago on that. Today, there will be a lot of emphasis looking beyond the individual sovereign country to regional approaches, regional integration, and cooperative strategies. So we'll hear about those from Africa, um, how they're approaching sort of continental approaches to DPI. And we'll also have from the Caribbean Telecommunications Union and UN-ECLAC some perspective on the Caribbean ELAC 26 digital agenda. And again, underscoring the importance of regional approaches. And then there's a really interesting session this morning looking at open data and AI as digital public goods. Yesterday, we heard about digital public goods as building blocks, to a large extent, open source components. Well, those are not the only digital public goods. Data and open data for a long time has kind of struggled in the Caribbean. So we've rebranded it, and now call it a digital public good, right? Right, guys? And then AI, of course, there's some interesting thoughts that we're, we're having with our colleagues from the Global Index for Responsible AI about what does AI as a digital public good, what does that look like? So that's going to be an interesting session. It's actually configured as a hybrid webinar. So we'll have people online from across the D4D network, our colleagues from Africa, LDRI, Asia, and others, joining with colleagues in the room here. And that D4D community is a community that I've had a long and fond relationship with, and they're all sitting here in the room somewhere. So that will actually take place in the room next door. So that's kind of what's coming up today. And then the workshops. And again, the workshops are now supposed to be these spaces for deep reflection, analysis, insight, oriented towards identifying solution approaches. We have two of those today. The first towards Caribbean shared credentials and wallet, and the second digital infrastructure enablers for capacity building, education, and skills sector transformation. And one of the things we've tried to do with these workshops is configure them in such a way that we have what we call problem owners in the room and solution providers in the room. And hopefully the twain shall meet and we can navigate our way towards solutions. And one of the things that I'm really interested in happening today, and Gunja, I don't know if you're able to confirm if the person's from, okay, how do you pronounce that again? Karma Yogi. All right, so Karma Yogi out of India. Let me just tell you a little bit about that. They'll be participating in the education workshop, so that's another plug. But Karma Yogi is responsible for EGOT Karma Yogi, which is India's flagship digital public infrastructure, DPI, for civil service capacity building. And the EGOT Karma Yogi platform has already impacted 9 million users with 30 million course completions in just 30 months, delivering AI-enabled competency-based learning. So that's education and skills training to scale. And they'll be part of the education session and really are keen to get their perspective on what education and skills training to scale looks like. Because one of the things that we've discovered with this digital transformation is that one of the early victims is education. So we have to figure out how we can bootstrap education with the benefit of DPI. And so that's a look ahead to today. I'm going to take 2 more minutes and tell you about a tool, an initiative that we've just done here at the UWI. So, you know, as we talk about regional cooperation and regional strategies, one of the things that is important is to understand the policy landscape in the Caribbean. 18, 20 countries all having their own version of data protection, access to information, and various legislative policy strategies. And one of the things that we don't do very well up to this point anyway, not after today, but we haven't shared very well. And again, you'll hear a lot of the need for that coming out of the regional cooperation sessions later. And so one of the things that we found it useful to do, and we decided to do this earlier this year because we ourselves at the university have worked on a number of global studies, JIRA and the Global Data Barometer. And in doing those studies, we find ourselves every time having to go back and search for these policy artifacts. So we thought it would be useful to have a tool that captures comprehensive policy mapping, facilitates regulatory coherence, so you can analyze, the same artifact across different sovereign boundaries. Help us to identify gaps and opportunities in the regional digital policy landscape. And as we look to policy harmonization, which has to be an essential part of regional cooperation, having such a resource would help. So this was developed. We worked with a team out of Guyana, a team of researchers, an all-female team of researchers. One of them is sitting right there in the room. Sandy, put your hand up. Um, and they did a really good job. And we're currently going through a validation cycle on this with the community. But we thought this would be a useful forum to share this. And so Sandy will, at some point during the course of the day, have a table outside where you can kick the tires on this. I'll just show you a little bit of what it looks like. So, for instance, this is the landscape view. And so it shows the Caribbean and it shows the different types of instruments, artifacts, the sectors that they cover, and essentially the policy objective. And so you can drill down and pick on any country or any type of artifact or any specific item and retrieve the source document. Just in terms of the numbers, at the moment, 528 artifacts, 255 of them are legislative or acts, legal documents, 85 regulatory documents, 87 policy documents, 55 strategy documents, and 25 guidelines. So quite comprehensive repository. And again, we're going through the validation of these in terms of the categorization, things that might be missing, and so forth. But really interesting repository. We think this will be quite useful for policymakers and decision makers. If you're thinking about developing an AI strategy, for instance, don't start with a blank slate. Go and look what the Dominican Republic has done and say, okay, how can we adapt this for our purposes? So that's the point of this initiative. One of the interesting aspects of this, if you look right up in the top right corner, we've plugged a little AI chatbot on the top of it. So you can search using the dashboard, or you can go to AI and say, well, tell me about data protection acts in the Caribbean. And so that's a nice little feature. It's still somewhat experimental. It's a work in progress. But for instance, if I say which Caribbean countries have data protection legislation, it will tell me, well, Belize has the DP Act of 2021, Grenada has the DP Act, and so forth and so forth. And so it will do a scan of the metadata, but it also scan content. So if I said describe the scope and contents of any existing ICT policies relating to agriculture, it says, well, in the Trinidad and Tobago National ICT Plan of 2018, there's a program to develop and implement an e-commerce strategy for the agriculture sector. And for the government of Jamaica's open data policy, and Matthew, this will be familiar, it mentions the Agriculture Open Data Project, which was actually the very first project we did under the D4D network, a research initiative by the Mona School of Business and Management in collaboration with Rural Agriculture Development Authority. So that AI tool is experimental, but I think it would be an interesting addition to this repository. So that's my thoughts for what today looks like. Again, it's going to be a long day, but guess what? At the end of it, you're going to get a real Jamaican experience. So stay the course, especially through the workshops. We really look forward to your engagement and your active participation in helping us to define elements of the Caribbean's DPI solution approaches. So thank you much. Let me turn back over to my patient moderator.
Thank you so much. It's all about learning from each other and learning together. No need to reinvent, but rather to build on the foundation that has been paved so far for us. Thank you so much, Dr. Matt Norton.